which I'll get into because there was a big thing that I was like, whoa, that was crazy. That makes so much freaking sense. This journey, I get it now. I get why I'm on this journey. I get it. It's because, okay, so today is week 3 of the spiritual faith tour, where I explore one church, place of spiritual gathering, a mosque, a temple, every single week to understand what my faith is. I'm building an intimacy or deepening an intimacy with what spirituality means to me. And while I know that God is not in just these structures themselves, it is like my way of spiritual mentorship. And so today we have a special guest, which is Mama.
Hi there.
We are going to go to Agape Spiritual Center, which is in LA. I'm visiting my mom at home, so I decided to bring her along with. And as we were getting ready, she was like, oh, we have to go to church. Like, there's still religious trauma that she's holding as well. So I'm working to, heal that. And it's so cool to just bring her along with. I used to go to this church actually before I moved to Colorado. And it was my way of like reconnecting back to my faith in a way that is not in a religious construct. So it is Michael Beckwith's church, and today there's going to be a guest speaker who is Marianne Williamson. She stands for or works with A Course in Miracles, and A Course in Miracles is just a spiritual text, which we could go deeper into. But she's going to be speaking today, and it's really coincidental because I've been reading her book, A Return to Love and Divine Compensation, and I'm obsessed. It's really the premise that all things that are of the highest good or connected to God come from love. Anything else, like fear, is obviously not your relationship with God. So I'll tell you all about the conversation later. We are going to drive there now. Got Mama some little matcha tea latte, and I'll sit down with you afterwards. Here I as you show me all that I must do.
As we seek to anchor the realm of heaven on earth, we hit the gong for the first time in the name and the nature of the infinite spirit. She's an author of 15 books, 4 of which have been the #1 New York Times bestsellers. A quote from her mega bestseller, Return to Love. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure, is considered an anthem for a contemporary generation of seekers.
Start by talking about 3 stories, religious and spiritual stories.
Just as Jesus ended up being born, and just as the Jews ended up making their way to the promised land, Americans over and over and over again, our ancestors, your and my ancestors, have said, no, not that. We're not doing it. So ladies and gentlemen, and everyone else, it's our turn now. Talking about Jesus says he lived on the earth but thought only the thoughts of heaven. His consciousness thus lifted up the conditions of the world. And when somebody says, yeah, but that was him, that's not you. Oh, no, it is you. And it is you. And it is you. And it is you.
So typically I record this right after I get back from whatever spiritual experience I've gone to, just because it's fresh and potent. But now this is 2 days later that I'm sitting down to record, for 2 reasons. One, I was at home taking care of my mother. As you saw, she joined us for this experience, which was really powerful. And 2, there was a lot that came through, and a lot of wisdom and understanding and answers that got answered that I needed time to process and to integrate, to really understand, what did I receive? What was that experience? What the hell happened? And I even took notes. So last night I went on just a deep dive into my notes from the experience, the feelings that I felt during the experience, and I brought them into clarity here. So I might be referencing my notes just so I make sure I touch on every topic and every understanding and learning that came through for me. But this experience was super near and dear to my heart for 2 reasons. First reason being is I've been to Agape Spiritual Center before. When I was living in LA and I was trying to figure out what my next steps were, do I continue personal training? I'm having these opportunities come through. Am I supposed to be in LA? I'm not really sure. I turned to Agape Spiritual Center, and I would go every single weekend. And Agape Spiritual Center is founded by Reverend Michael Beckwith, and it's been created and alive for a long time. So as I was in transition last time, before I moved to Colorado, that was the foundation that I stood on. And I felt like, oh, I've been on this journey for a while. And as I was there, I was also recalling before I got into my healing journey, before I started to understand what spirituality meant to me, I would go to every single workshop, experience, event that I could find in the spiritual realm in Los Angeles. And I went in with discernment. This feels really good. This doesn't feel good. I'm not sure I can get behind that. I can really get behind this. And I started to adopt what my belief systems were. And as I'm embarking on what I'm calling my faith tour, this experience was really a reminder that I have an understanding of my faith. I have an understanding of what spirituality means to me. And again, like I've said in many videos before, this is a deepening. This is a deepening into my next level and to really build and deepen an intimate relationship with God, which we'll get into because I had a wild revelation around that. So it's really near and dear to my heart because of that experience and how I went to the workshops, and then as I evolved and I started going to Agape Spiritual Center, and then I stopped going to any sort of church or spiritual gathering consistently when I moved to Colorado. First being, I didn't know where to go. Second, I moved 3 weeks before everything shut down. And third is I was really in a space of building and scaling my business. And my business grew really fast, really quickly. And that was my main focus. So a lot of my practices were really in my own home, in my little sanctuary by my altar. A lot of my practices were online with my mentors and guides. And that's why it feels powerful, is because I've been doing this and I forgot that I've been doing this. So it was a really big reminder, like, you know what you're doing, you know what path you're on, and now let's create a deeper intimacy. It's just like any relationship that you're in. There's levels to it, right? You first start off maybe getting together once a month or once a week, and it's more surface level, then it starts to deepen, right? And then there becomes this really beautiful evolution and intimacy within your friendships or within your relationships. That's how I feel my relationship is with God. Second thing that makes it really special is, as you've heard in previous videos, if you haven't watched the previous videos, I would definitely go back and watch through so you can see how this is really unfolding. And I've been reading A Course in Miracles. It's a text that really brings in spirituality and God from an anchoring of love. And it's different than the Bible, but there's references to the Bible in this text. And why this is near and dear is because as I've been reading A Course in Miracles, simultaneously or side by side, I've been listening to Marianne Williamson, who wrote a book called A Return to Love. And I'm also reading her book called The Law of Divine Compensation. And as I was looking for what church I was going to go to while I was in LA visiting my mother, I found Agape Spiritual Center again, obviously, because that was my first go-to. And I was like, do they even have service that's in person? And they brought their services back in person. And as I was on their website, I noticed that Marianne Williamson was going to be the speaker for Sunday. And so that just felt so aligned. I was like, whoa, imagine, like, what are the coincidences? Not a coincidence. It's really the divine path that I'm on that she was there to speak. So that was really, really potent and made me so excited. So I was like, hell yes, we got to go. So we go to Agape Spiritual Center. I bring my mother because I've brought her there before. And most of you probably don't know this unless you work with me in a really close proximity or you've been in my containers before and I've used my mother as a reference. But my mother, about 2.5, 3 years ago, was diagnosed with mild cognitive impairment, which is the stage right before dementia. And that was very, very difficult for me. That was a very trying time, very challenging. To know the mother that I knew, who was very independent, very lively, very social, would just get up and go do things, now has a hard time doing the basic things that we take for granted as human beings. And while I have a lot of different approaches and understandings to what she's moving through, and that could be for another video or maybe down the line, I know that this is put in on her path for her to refine her purpose. And what she's really missing a lot of is nervous system regulation. There's a lot of the dorsal vagal checking out of life, been in fight or flight for so long that she's now just kind of numb to life. She lacks a purpose and a connection to something greater than her. And so I was going to go by myself, but Spirit, God told me that it was important for me to bring her along. And I brought her to Agape when she was first diagnosed with this. And I felt called that she needed to come with me this time. So not only am I going on this journey, I'm also bringing those that I love along. I had a friend recently who reached out to me and told me that I inspired her to start connecting back to God herself. And so if there's anything that you get from these videos, I hope it's an inspiration to really find what your connection is to source, God, universe, something greater than you. Because when we're out here trying to do life alone, that's where that loneliness comes in. I posted on my Instagram a while back about how I was feeling this deep sense of loneliness. And while I'm not lonely in the world, I have a lot of beautiful, powerful, amazing, soul-aligned friendships. My family is very much there for me, roots for me, supports me. My clients make me feel fulfilled. The work that I'm doing makes me feel alive. There was still a sense of loneliness. And the loneliness that I was feeling was not a worldly loneliness, but a spiritual loneliness. And so I believe it's so important for you to live a life that's connected to something greater than you. And if you don't believe, or you're atheist, or you have religious trauma, I challenge you to explore those spaces that make you feel contraction. Because where there is contraction, there's possibility and potential for evolution. So that's what I'm doing. Even in the places that I feel contraction, I'm still going there. So I brought my mother along so she can start to maybe get some God or Holy Spirit or life force back into her through connecting to something greater than her. And what's crazy is she had so much resistance to going because she kept bringing up how she didn't want to go to church because of the way church was that we knew, which was the Catholic faith. So I saw so clearly where my religious trauma has come from. She was in such resistance, had even mentioned things like, when did you get into this? How much you used to hate religion and how much you resisted and tried to get out of it your whole life. And I saw that within her. And if you know anything about epigenetics and mother wounds and ancestral trauma, like that's real. And that is why I'm feeling this resistance, is because it's alive within her. And it's also alive within me. So I'm starting to deprogram and repattern and reclaim what spirituality and my relationship is with God and what that means to me. So for her to go along, she was even asking questions like, well, what do you wear? And I was wearing something similar. It was a top like this and a skirt. And she's like, oh my gosh. And my stomach was kind of showing. She's like, you can wear that to this church? You can't wear that, right? Because we grew up in Catholic faith where there was priests and altar boys and they wore these white gowns, and the priests and nuns, couldn't explore their sexuality. There was a lot of repression in the space that I went to. And I don't know if I spoke this in a last video, but I went to Catholic school from kindergarten until second grade. And then in second grade, I asked my parents if they could remove me from the school. I don't know, wise little second grader I was, but my soul knew. And so they are very much honored. They very much honored that. And so I was able to leave the Catholic school and go to a public school where I completely lost faith, obviously. But then as I came into high school, there was another longing and thirst for spirituality. So I went back to the Catholic faith to get my confirmation, because up until second grade, I'd received my baptism and my first communion. And the next one is your confirmation. So I went to Sunday school and I went with my friend, and I was so still disconnected from it that I couldn't tell you a single verse in the Bible except for maybe like John 3:16. It's probably not even it. I don't know. I just did not feel connected. It did not resonate with me. So this journey that I'm on speaks really loud and is really important and really significant. And I just feel like right now I'm in my own lane and sharing in the capacity that feels best for me, so I can be able to understand what that means to heal this religious trauma and to come back to my purest, truest, realest relationship with God. So as we're here, the music was very loud, and one of the main songs that they use at Agape Spiritual Center is called God Use Me. And it's basically saying, like, use me, God, for the gifts that I have. Use them in the way that's the best capacity. Use me to be a healer. Use me to be a conduit. Use me to make this world a better place. Use me as a beacon of light, so that way other people that are not on this journey, or maybe feel lost, or maybe feel like their ship's out to sea with no lighthouse, can start to find the light again. And so Marianne Williamson, again, who is the author of A Return to Love and The Law of Divine Compensation, which are two really powerful books, and feel like they resonate massively with my journey, because I'm on this journey where I'm healing my relationship with money and with men. So that's why I'm healing my relationship with the spiritual father, which I'll get into, because there was a big thing that I was like, whoa, that was crazy. That makes so much freaking sense. So the first place that I want to share is that this journey, I get it now. I get why I'm on this journey. I get it. It's because there is a space where there's a logical understanding of something. So there's a logical understanding of doing good. There's a logical understanding of spirituality. And I feel that this is my spiritual journey. So I went from awareness, where I was exploring the workshops, where I was looking to be open and curious about spirituality. And then the space that I just came from was the embodiment of spirituality. So I had the awareness, I had the embodiment, and now where I'm at is not that I don't have a connection to spirituality, I don't have a connection to my faith, I don't have a connection to God. It's that I'm here to actualize, to bring what I became aware of, to bring what I feel as an embodiment into actualization. So my relationship with God right now is coming into an actualized relationship. The deepening is actualization. And she spoke to this when she talked about the Constitution, and her topic and her talk was very much bridging the spiritual understandings and love into politics. Because if you know her, she ran for president last time and she's running for president again. So I believe that her biggest purpose that she's trying to express right now, at least what I got from it, is how can we bridge the gap so there's not division, so it's all unity, so there's not these polarizing political views, where everyone is from the root of love. And while we all have different belief systems, the root is love. And so she was talking about how to bridge spirituality and religious teaching. So she brought in teachings from Moses, from the Bible, from Egyptian culture. And she shared 3 stories around how we're coming into a space in this season during what's transpiring from everything that transpired through the pandemic up until now, as this place where we are actualizing. So she shared that the Constitution and those that wrote it, they wrote from the awareness, they wrote from an understanding, but they actually weren't actualized in the teachings. So it's one thing to know, right? It's one thing to have an understanding and to even have an embodiment of, but to actualize your faith or to actualize what you feel you stand for is a whole new intimacy, a whole new deepening. So it was really cool to see how she was talking about so many different religious stories or cultural stories and how they all have this similar meaning. And that's what I believe to be true. Is I'm so excited to explore different faiths, different cultures, because I already told you before, I think I have experienced different cultures. I've been in different cultures in past lives. So to me, I don't believe that the Bible is the only way, or Course in Miracles is the only way, or Hindu teachings are the only way. I feel that they all have similar undertones. They're all trying to share similar stories. And so she brought all of these stories, and it was so clear that they all had an understanding. They all had an undertone of the same message. So I love that about Agape Spiritual Center, is that it's not telling you need to go this way or do this or have this religious view. It's how can we take and explain different types of cultures, different types of religion, so you can form your own belief systems. Because at the end of the day, it's God and love, right? So that was really powerful to be able to understand what my spiritual learnings and understandings are. So that was really powerful. The other space she started to explain in is when you're in a time of hardship, when you're in a challenging space. Say for me, that's why I started on this faith tour, was because I was finding that I wasn't lit up by life. I wasn't in love with life. I didn't feel like life was pulsing through me. I've faced specific challenges, like I just shared at the beginning of this video, even with my mother and what she's going through with her memory. That's challenging. It's hard. It hurts. There's so many different emotions. I feel like I'm grieving my mother before my mother is gone, right? And that's just one pocket of challenge that's happening in my life. But the challenge is to prepare us for the birth of something new. And she explained this as the mother, and she used spiritual teaching. She even used Mary as an example, that you conceive an idea or you conceive an understanding of something. So that's when you first become impregnated with the idea or with your vision or with what comes next or with your dream life, right? You conceive it. And then you grow it, right? That's where the baby starts to grow inside of the womb, and you grow this understanding. And the idea might be exciting, and then the growth, there might be like some challenging times, some really rewarding times, and there's a lot of peaks and valleys, which I feel like I've been on, because through the past 9 months to year, I feel like I've had really high highs and really low lows, and nothing seems very consistent. But if you think of pregnancy, the first trimester, you don't know what you're going to get. You might wake up morning nauseous as hell. You might be lethargic. You might not be able to go work out. And then second trimester comes and you're soaring high and you feel so happy and your energy levels are so exciting. And then third trimester comes and you're excited, but maybe you're feeling a little heavier in your body. Some people get put on bed rest. Some people feel that they can work out up until labor. Like, it's all different. And there's all these peaks and all these valleys. And through that, then there's labor. And labor is the most challenging spot, right? I haven't been through labor myself. I've witnessed beautiful friends have amazing home births where it's all natural, and the birth itself is so painful. It's hard. It hurts, right? And that's the last piece of the struggle, of the challenge, of the push to then be gifted with beautiful life, right? And so if you're in a space of challenge, I want you to think about this journey that you're on as pregnancy. From the time there was conception to the growth of the child to labor to then receiving your beautiful gift that is life. And if you don't have children, you've never experienced this just like I have, I feel like you can imagine what I'm trying to explain. That the very last piece where it feels difficult, it feels like you can't push anymore. It feels like, holy shit, how am I going to do this? I should just stop now. You give it a little bit more and you get to receive what you're birthing, whether that's a new business, whether that's a new idea, whether that's the manifestation of a divine partnership. You get to birth this into life, right? And so if there's a challenge, think about, like, you could be at the very last push in labor before you receive the miracles, before you receive the fruits of your labor, right? And in a home birth, when I've witnessed my friends or I've heard my friends go through the most magical experiences with birthing their children at home without any sort of medication, a lot of them will explain it to you as a spiritual experience. A lot of them will explain it to you as there was like a deep connection to God, a euphoria. Some people even explain it as ecstasy in the labor, right? And if that's not anything to explain that at those challenging, trying, hard points, God is there to support what you're birthing. And that's where I feel like I truly am, is that I was at that really hard last push. Okay, it's so hard. I can't do it myself. I need to call in God and ask for God's support. And every single day there's a miracle. Every single day he's answering a question. I could go on and on and on about what it is that I'm learning and receiving and experiencing, but I want to keep this video short. I'll probably do one and just keep it as like mini short clips of all the times I experienced miracles, so you can start to find hope and excitement and inspiration for creating your own relationship with God. But she explained that, and I was like, the actualization and the labor. Once you go through the labor, you come to that actualized space where everything that you went through over the 9 months is the space where you then get to have the fruits of your labor or that new life, right? And the last piece that I felt was like mind-blowing was she experienced why we call God He. And I've always had a challenge with calling God He, especially as I'm in the feminine embodiment work, the self-intimacy work. I'm all about teaching women how to come back to reclaim their pleasure, their power, their purpose, play, right? That giving energy or giving a name to God as He felt deeply contracting. Even in my last videos, you'll notice that I kept referencing God or source or universe without trying to bring He into it, because I'm like, well, women are the creators of life. They birth life. But she explained this really beautifully, and I feel like it's what I've been trying to learn and understand, is that I have a deep connection to nature, which we call Mother Nature. No one questions why we call Mother Nature Mother Nature. We just do. She holds us, right, underneath our feet. She holds the climate. She holds the air. She holds the warmth through the fire, right? She's very nurturing. She's very supportive. And through that, I've then developed a relationship with more of the Hindu style goddesses, right? Where there's archetypes that we can connect to access specific personalities, expressions, energies within us to be able to express our own divine feminine. And so through that, I have a really beautiful relationship with the divine feminine and spirituality. But if you think about the Mother Nature being the feminine, there must be the masculine, because everything has a yang and yin energy. In Eastern philosophy, the yang and yin is really about the polarity. It's about the masculine and feminine. And when we're looking at, say, any of the religious or more Western religious teachings like Christianity, there is the masculine, which is God, and then there is women like Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, right? And we need the masculine and feminine. And so why I was feeling so chaotic in my spiritual journey is because the feminine is chaotic. The feminine is expressive. She's emotional. She's like water, right? Very fluid. That I didn't have that foundation or that structure of the masculine spirituality. So when you think about the masculine energy and the feminine energy, you get to think about this idea of the pregnancy, of conception, right? The feminine body needs the masculine spirit or soul to impregnate her. The feminine body needs the energy of spirit of God to birth life through her. So as she was sharing this explanation about how everything has the yang and yin energy or polarity or masculine feminine in life, it made so much sense as to why God is referred to as He, is because, again, we need the masculine for our feminine to not feel chaotic. We need the masculine to impregnate life into us. And so now I feel very rooted and very grounded in, God is He, and all the Hindu goddesses that I can connect to my spirituality through the archetypes of those goddesses to be able to feel more of me in the feminine makes so much sense. So that was a question that I needed answered, and I didn't go seeking it. I just waited for it to come through, and it made so much sense. So spiritual daddy, sky daddy, God, He, whatever you want to call that energy, is more of a masculine energy. So overall, the experience was super powerful. It was a little challenging to get my mom to go there just because of her memory, but it felt really rewarding, and she was super happy to have gone after all was said and done. And I feel like even if she might not remember exactly what she got from it, there was a way in which God spoke. And at the very end, I just broke down into tears, and I felt like God was there protecting her. I felt like God was waking something up within me and giving me the pieces and nuggets that I needed every single time I go to experience something on this faith tour. So I'm going to continue to keep exploring. I am back in Colorado, so I'll be going to an experience in Colorado, either a Hare Krishna temple or there's a new church that opened up down the street. So I may be going to one of those next week. We'll see which one I feel called to or which ones make sense. And I'm just so grateful to be on this journey. It's challenging, but it's also so powerful. And one last share that I felt was so divine is that Friday, before the church event on Sunday, I went to yoga, and the yoga instructor was just like speaking to my soul. So I stopped her afterwards, and we had a full-blown conversation, and we're both in the same line of work, and she has a really powerful brand, and she's opening up her own studio, and we just had like this really powerful connection. And so we connected, we're like, let's get together. And I got busy because I was taking care of my mother. And then obviously she had things on her own plate. So we didn't get to connect right then and there. We didn't get to connect afterwards. But as I'm leaving Agape, I'm walking down the street and I see this woman who's talking to this guy. And I'm like, oh, that's her. And so I got to see how divine it is when God wants you to re-meet someone or wants someone in your life. God will make that happen. And it was just a really powerful revelation and understanding that I don't need to chase anything that's meant for me. It'll always make its way back into my life. And there's such divine friendships and sisterhoods and partnerships that will come to me when I just trust and surrender, and I play in faith, and I listen to what I'm being shown, and I'm opening to how God wants to use me. So that was really powerful. Yes, it was a sisterhood. Yes, it was a friendship. And it reminded me of just how much I don't have to go seek and reach for and go get the man that I'm desiring to call into my life as my divine partner, my soulmate, that he is going to come and that God will make it very clear. And I have an idea of who it's supposed to be through 2 years of doing this inner work and seeing him in visualizations and connecting to his energy and all of the signs that God's showing me that it is yet him. And I know him now in human form, but I don't actually physically, we haven't met. But it's just so cool to surrender and be like, okay, God, if this is what you feel is of the highest and greatest good, if this is what you feel is most divine and aligned for me and for him, I know you'll make it happen, and I don't have to go do anything to go get it. We'll just run into each other serendipitous one day, or very synchronistic one day, and you'll make it happen when we're supposed to meet. And if it's not him, that's okay too. And I'm handing it all over to God to know, you know what I want. That man is the idea of what I desire. And so if it's him, amazing. I know that's divine and that's what is supposed to happen. But if it's not, I know that if not this, something better. And you only know that, right? So building this relationship with spiritual father is allowing me to understand and surrender and feel safe in my feminine, to relax and to not have to control and to go get and forcefully create. It's it's going to happen, and I'm handing it all over to God. And that song that they sing every single time in the congregation of the Agape Spiritual Center, use me. God, use me. And I know that you're going to use me for the highest and greatest good. So I love this journey. It's so powerful. If you feel called to subscribe, comment, like this video because you feel moved by something that I said, or you feel excited and inspired by this journey, I'd absolutely love and appreciate that. And if not, I just hope that there is a deepening that you get to continuously do in your spirituality and your faith in whatever capacity that looks like for you. And I'm just here again sharing vulnerably what felt contracting, what felt expansive, what felt grounded, what felt what I would question. So yeah, thank you for joining. Thank you for tuning along, and I will see you next week.